So she says, work friends have been listening to your show and are wondering, how do people, pastor and priest, keep the Sabbath when it is their jobs to work on the Sabbath? This is a great question. So David talks about the fact that the priest, he works on the Sabbath, right? Is it David? No, it's Paul. I forget. Anyway.
Well, Yeshua cites the example of David getting the bread, the showbread, which was on a Sabbath, because that's when they pull the bread of the presence out.
Right.
Put the new one in and eat the bread that's been in the Mishkan for the whole week.
But even the priests continue to work on the Sabbath. I think that's cited by Christ. I could be wrong. And then also pastors. And I know Rob has too. We've ran into this dilemma. You want to keep a Sabbath, but if you are pastoring any kind of a congregation, you are working on the Shabbat. That's all there is to it. We get to our church usually about an hour before we start, and then we usually are last ones out. And so for us, it's not a 3-hour event. It is a 5 to 6 hour event, which is most of the day. So all of that to say, yeah, it is work. So what do we do with that? Well, there's a couple of things to say about this. Number one, obviously, if it's commanded by God, then it's permissible. So the priesthood obviously has to continue to work on the Sabbath. And the rabbis, not that the rabbis are always right by any stretch of the imagination, but the rabbis have determined that any kind of work in terms of studying the Bible, preaching, worshiping God, that's all permissible on the Sabbath because it's to the glory of God. And I tend to side with that. I believe that pastors are doing something that needs to be done, and so are people in the choir, so are people, deacons, so are the ushers. If you go to that kind of church, there's all sorts of different jobs that take place that need to be done on the Sabbath, and that's permissible. Now, with that said, I am a firm believer that pastors and, of course, priests, which we don't have today, but I don't believe we have today, pastors should take another day off. So I think that it's important to actually have a rest day with the family. And some might say, well, you get to rest at church or at your Messianic synagogue or whatever. But once again, doing that for long enough, I know that it's not really rest. It's draining. After our church on Saturday, we will come home and just kind of collapse on the couch, just exhausted. What do you have to add to this conversation, Rob?
Yeah, it's another example in the Torah. Like there's what's called the tamid, the olat tamid, which is the daily burnt offering, which means every single day there is a lamb at morning, whole burnt offering, meaning they have to select the lamb. It's got to be inspected because it has to be tamim, right? It has to be without blemish.
Right.
They have to slaughter it. I mean, I don't know if any of our listeners here, I'm sure some have lived on a farm. They know what's involved in slaughtering an animal. Well, every day in the morning, it's got to be skinned. The carcass has to be parsed up. It has to be placed, rinsed, placed on the altar. That's in addition to the wood. It has to, they have to keep the fire going. And then they have to do that at the end of the day. So the daylight hours are marked by that every single day. Well, on the Shabbat, God says, add another one.
Yeah, do more. So don't just do that, do more.
So there's 2 in the morning and 2 at night on Shabbat. Right. Male lambs being slaughtered. So you could even say, just on the level of what we call the olah, the olat tamid, it's not just work is the same. That work doesn't cease. There's work that actually increases, and so what are we to learn from that? Does the nature of the work of God's servants for the sake of the flock,
right?
Does that desecrate the holiness that God has declared concerning the seventh day from creation? I say no. It's part of that priestly service for the glorification of God.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.